Okay, so I wasn't sure if I was going to make a video this week, but I decided that, well, I know there are some people who are really looking for distractions right now. So if I can help provide that distraction, even if it's just for a few minutes of watching a video, or if I can inspire a project that'll take your mind off of something for a little while longer, then that's what I can do to help today. Also, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, so my judgment is probably not the best today either. And there's a house across the road getting a new roof, although I think people are on lunch break right now because the hammering and machine sounds have stopped. So we'll see if I can get this done before that starts back up. And I did a lot of little busy make-work things yesterday, trying to, distract. One of the little things I did was, I removed the hair from this pale Leah sculpt made to move body and all the glue that was inside. That's always fun. Removed her face paint. Right now she's on this Disney store body, and yesterday I took the Dremel to the pelvis area to allow her to sit a little more delicately. Because if you're not familiar with the Disney store bodies, by default, they sit like this. Not that there's necessarily anything wrong with sitting like this, but it's nice to have the option not to sit like this. So you see, grinding out the pelvis helps immensely for that. And that's one of those little custom tips that I think John was the first one I saw do. And John is also the custom tip that he's come up with that's proven to be fairly helpful is melting little bits of hard plastic from doll torsos and stuff, melting that in acetone to make this paste. I mean, do this with an open window. It's an acetone, it's a paste of melted plastic and acetone, and you can use a toothpick to apply it to a doll's parts for repair or to fill stuff in. And again, put it in an open window to dry, and once it sets up, it's just plastic. Once the acetone is evaporated, you're back to being just plastic. So that's one of the several things I did with the custom I worked on using that Happy Family Allen head with his big smile, his big disturbing smile. And, well, before I got to the acetone goop is what John's been calling it. Before I got to that, I removed his hair and his face paint and broke out the epoxy putty and gave him beard and hair. I'm not a great sculptor. I do like playing with epoxy putty, and it gets the job done, especially since this will all be painted, and you can hide imperfections and cause illusions with paint. I do intend to paint this body green again. My purchase of this sculpt and stripping it and noticing how much it looked like the Tango sculpt inspired John to use his version of the same sculpt to make a green guy to sort of be the Mattel Winky Card's brother. And so has a green guy with beard, which is what inspired me to put the beard on this, and I'm probably going to paint him green. I haven't entirely decided because Luigi Q made a comment that he looks like young Obi-Wan Kenobi. So probably still make him green just because I can't think of a use for young Obi-Wan, especially with non-gripping hands, couldn't hold a lightsaber. And these hands are where I used some of that plastic goop. I went through my supply of spare hands, and I don't have a lot of them. I have a lot of fist hands, and mostly I pirate the hinges out of those and use the hinges like to add articulation to existing bodies. But I had one set of fist hands that the fists were vinyl, but they were glued to a hard plastic base. And so I pried the final fist off of there, and there was a nub in the middle to hold them in place, and I trimmed that off and ground it flat. And then I had these old articulated Ken hands that I cut off of another body, because the articulated Ken bodies don't have the most graceful hands when the wrist can't move. So way back when I did that one, I added action figure hands, which I don't have many of those left. So on this one, I cut the Ken hands at about where the hard plastic nub was on these original action figure hands. And one I cut just right, and I basically just used plastic weld, which is like acetone's cousin. It's a slower melting, and it will bond hard plastics, and when that stuff evaporates again with ventilation, it forms a bond because it's basically just plastic that's mixed with plastic. And so I did better on this hand. It was just able to bond it straight to the thing. And this hand I cut too short, so I had to build up a bit of filler again with the plastic melted in the acetone goop. And also the thing that I attached the hands to was wider at the bottom than the palm of the hand was, so I built some up on that. Again, I could stand to sand it some more. I mean, I sanded it, I used the Dremel to smooth it out quite a bit, and then I put a layer of, again, plastic weld on top of it to kind of smooth everything out, and that's left it a little bit shiny. We'll smooth it out. The color match isn't too bad. The hand bits that I used initially were a slightly paler skin tone than the regular Barbie tan plastic of the hands. But if I paint them green, that won't matter. If I don't paint them green and I can get it sanded smooth, it's not too bad. So that's this project, again, egged on by John's success with his makeover of Happy Family Alan. And also playing around with the acetone goop. Another thing John had done is we've been finding Flavas dolls at thrift stores, and the Flavas dolls have strange necks. It's almost the opposite of the Monster High and Ever After High neck that starts out small and gets big. These start out normal and get small, and then there's like a ball at the top. It's a very strange neck arrangement, shape thing. So one thing John did is he used the acetone goop to build that weird inward angled neck up to being more of a straight neck. And so, since I was messing around with the Flavas body that I found, I decided to do that with the acetone goop. Again, it's not the cleanest alteration, just because I'm impatient and I haven't actually sanded it and filled it in as much as I should. But that built the neck up enough that I felt like it wasn't too weird to use with a regular doll head. And also, inspired by John, I took the original Flavas clicky bendy legs off. And I think John has just been elastic stringing on old like gymnast Barbie and ballerina Barbie legs, elastic hips. But when I was working on taking the Flavas legs off, I noticed that the sphere in tube joint that the hips have looked a lot like what the modern fashionistas and modern Barbie hips in general configuration is. So I checked it. I happened to have a pair of fashionistas legs, and the inner barrel tube part of that was the right diameter, so I got the hammer, and I have this methodology on my Flickr somewhere, the way you can swap out, like if you find a Barbie with articulated arms but straight legs and then another doll with articulated legs but straight arms, if that has this sphere in barrel connection, then you can carefully remove the legs from the hip joint and swap them onto the body with the bendable arms, and then you get one body with articulated arms and legs, and then you put the legs back on the other body, and you have one body with straight arms and straight legs, and then you put your unwanted head on that body and donate it. At least that's what I do. So anyway, I got Fashionista's legs onto the Flavors body, and then that ended up with a very stylized body. Longer legs, weird little torso, although Happy D was the shorter Flavors doll. So her midriff was a lot shorter than Pipo or Tika, one of the taller dolls. But still, it has very odd, broad shoulders, and to me, a doll with broad shoulders needs a larger head, and I was going through my doll box and found this Cleo, Monster High Cleo head that I had on a Fashionista's body for a while, but again, it was too normal a body for this head. I've also painted her eyes white, because I went through a phase where I was painting out the sclera in all my Monster High dolls, the cats and the dog, werewolves, and the skeleton and the spider, since I don't think any of those should have visible whites of their eyes. So this one I went the other direction and gave her all whites, because that's another monster trope. So anyway, so this head's a little heavy for the loose joint that the Flavors body has, but it's still, I think it works pretty well. This Flavors hand is missing a thumb. I might live with it. I might see if I can pirate a thumb off of another doll in acetone, or, well, not acetone goop, but use plastic weld to put that on. I mean, yes, I could cut them off and give them articulation, but they actually, the Flavors have fairly graceful hands. They're not just the old karate chops of the articulated Barbie bodies. So, another thing, the pelvis, see, unlike this pelvis, or even this modified pelvis, the pelvis on the Flavors doll is so narrow that you can actually get the legs a lot closer together than you can on a regular Barbie body, even to the point where she can cross her legs pretty high. I don't think I have another Barbie that can do that. I haven't tried it with the Made Moves because they have the thigh articulation, so they can probably do this, but I don't know if it's quite the same way. So I just put her in this reproduction Barbie swimsuit with the back stitched up so it fits tighter. I just put her in this so I could help, like, show her body off a little more, but, you know, attitude. And then in terms of a straight up head swap, no other alterations needed, that Star Darlings Piper, the one with the blonde hair with the green streak and the blue-green clothes that I got for a good price recently, I said I was going to try putting one of my 1980s Skipper heads on that body, and I did, and it is a really good match, especially considering not only they're from different decades but different manufacturers. So here she is. These are the original shoes, although I did cut off the big sort of fan-shaped front things. Phone's ringing, hold on. Hooray for caller ID and the internet. That means that we can look up the calls and decide not to answer them because they appear to be junk calls. Anyway, great match. Different decades, different manufacturers. This body does, I did trim a little bit from the inside of the elbow so that she'd have a little bit more range of motion. I really need to trim out the back of her knees because this is as far as it goes. It's not just a subject of the pants. Like I said, she has slightly odd feet, but at least this pair of shoes, once I trimmed the weird ruffle thing off of it, works fairly well. It even almost matches the blue-green color in her eyes, but not really, but when it's that far away, sure. So, there's that doll. Again, this is one of those bodies with a really short torso and long legs, so I will probably dress her in things that obscures the fact that her crotch is up here when it should be down here. So that's another reason she's wearing this. And these Momoko jeans that I made years ago, it's not the most flattering fit at the top, but they fit this body pretty well. I did have a bit of a problem getting them over the feet, but I don't think those feet are so large and stylized that they look too odd with this head. So that's her. And I finally got the jumpsuit finalized. I am putting links below to the Flickr post of the pattern itself and the instructions. They are both formatted to fit on American 8.5 by 11 pages. I'm sorry I did not try them on A4, but I tried everywhere else in it. I tried to convert things to metric when measurements came up. I'm American, but I try not to be that American. So this is the final jumpsuit. This one is made without interfacing because this is the one that I recorded in a video the second try. The first try making the video, I scrapped it. It was getting too long. I did too much. I did a lot of top stitching. I did interfacing, which required ironing, which it just... So I have made the video of this. I have started editing it. I think it's going to work out. I will definitely, well, post it on YouTube when I do get that finished. So I don't know if I've shown before the elastic and back, which I do have listed as optional, but I have never made this jumpsuit without the elastic because I like the bit of shaping that it gives. So there's that. And then yesterday my shoe order from Mimi Woo arrived. First thing I did when I tore it open was try those shoes on Moana. They are a little big. Let's see what a difference there is between the shoe and her foot. So if I want to put socks on, there's plenty of room for socks. Since we are so used to seeing these large Converse type shoes on Blythe dolls, I think that this comes together and it doesn't read as too oversized. The width is great. That's the problem with putting these feet in Ken shoes, is these feet are wider than Ken shoes want to have. And I was afraid that if I left these feet in Ken shoes for too long, they would eventually rip the vinyl, because I've had that happen with Barbie shoes before. I've had the shoes crammed onto feet. I think it's even happened with the Lady Lovely Locks style flat foot shoes that have been sold for gymnast Barbies. No, yeah, that did happen. I had that on I told you I was tired, right? Had those on feet and they eventually started splitting, but also the old 1960s style flats that aren't really flat because they're angled for Francie, but they were sold as for Barbie for a while. I had them on somebody in the 90s and a pair split. So cramming plastic shoes onto feet that are a little bit large can be bad for the shoes eventually. So I can leave these on her, and they're plenty wide and cloth, so these shouldn't ever split. I don't remember the size of these shoes. They are, just measuring the sole and not the outer sole, they are, I'd say about 40 millimeters. Like I said, those are a little long, but I think it was the width of her feet that made me decide on these. About 15 millimeters for the width. And so, yeah, the width of the shoe is the important thing. I've been saying that, haven't I? And for the record, she's wearing a Blythe dress I made. It's a little loose and roomy on Blythe. It's a little tight fitting on her. The Velcro could probably be a little more overlapped in back. But, so this body, that's another option. Blythe Momoko size stuff. And I still like this doll. And I'm happy she has shoes, because I have admitted recently to myself that doll shoes mean a lot to me. I get most of my own shoes from a thrift store, so I can go in and sometimes happen to find a really nice pair of shoes for $10 or less. That's not so possible too often with doll shoes. However, places like Mimi Woo and a lot of places on eBay, you can get these cute little Converse style shoes for relatively inexpensive. And I got a pair of that, like that, for Valeska, the quarter-sized MSD size doll also. And these have, I couldn't tell in the picture, it wasn't too close. They have the skulls glued on However, I don't know if I can get close enough for you to see. They are necklace pendants, or charms. They have the holes in the top. And they are so hot glued on that I just pulled that one off. The other one probably won't come off. That's how it usually... Oh, no, it does come off. Which is fine with me. The skulls were cute, and they have left impressions in them, but basic black shoes would probably work better for my dolls. And now I have skull charms that I can do something with. I also got, again, these are shoes related to these boots that Shani is wearing. And I have a pair of gray shoes like this I've gotten from Mimi Lou in the past. They are listed as Blythe size, but they fit flat foot gymnast, and so of course they also fit live bodies, and I think they even fit on the old style long pull-up feet. So these are called the Velvet hiking shoes. So there's that. And then this last pair were not listed. They're just kind of in their own odd little section. They weren't really listed as being for any particular style of doll that I can remember. But turns out they have the same sole as these. So they, yes, they're a little wide, but that just means you can put socks in them. They will fit on flat foot Barbie and Liv style bodies and shoes for my dolls. And so I'm probably not going to order any doll stuff for a while. I did my errands today. I didn't go to the thrift store. So right now, with the way things are going, I don't feel like I will be tempted to go to the thrift store for quite a while. Crowds aside. Crowds or not. So I will hopefully be buckling down and doing more projects, whether they're customs. Of course, like I said, even if I don't paint him green, I still need to paint him, so there's more to do on that project. Again, I paint her green or purple or some fantasy color, or not, she still needs a face and hair, although it is tempting to sculpt epoxy putty hair, although her head was rock solid before with all the glue in it. It seems like it would be not really ironic to give her rock solid hair on purpose, but it might be funny. I still have, you know, a couple dolls in boxes, the Descendant dolls and other Star Darlings. I still have the Grace and that articulated, the Barbie style Nikki. So, and I have I ever shown you this? This is the Bodies box. You see, I have a few set up. That's going to be her hair eventually. It's going to be her hair eventually. So these are my Bodies. A few Ever After Highs. Again, I don't know if I'm going to find real feet to put on this one or leave it as Bratz. Oh, I did put Esmeralda. I don't know if I showed you this on the old Brandy body, so she can actually dance a little bit. I'm not going to do it now because I don't have my hands free. So she might get something done, and of course I think it's funny that I also have thrifted Phoebus. And yeah, I have no lack of resources to keep my hobby going without actually going out into the world and acquiring anything else. Which, like I said, right now, I don't feel like doing that. But eventually, if it seems like the world is not going to end, maybe. But we're already doing the Dolly diet in November. So for the rest of this month, I was already saying no more dolls, so that shouldn't be hard to stick to. And then December, I will probably be... Well, I want to start, since I'm not going to thrift stores, that means I'm actually going to have a little more free time each week, in theory. And if I can just get off the computer, I can start sewing more things. I have projects. I want to actually, there are things I want to sew for other people. And I just need to do that. And so I think I'm out of things to say. I hope that helped distract you a little bit, although here's Chip. I always say hi to Chip. Yes, Chippy's been watching the people across the road put the new roof on. He hasn't been happy with that. And yeah, I'll see you later.